Talk, shop, pop, movies.
Ahoy there, this is Derek, the Convicted Cinephile, and if you're a convicted cinephile yourself, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel down below. If it's your first time here, a welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, a thank you for sticking around. So what are we doing? I forgot already. Okay. So, a young boy named the 4K King put out a Halloween stack challenge, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I was like, that sounds fun. I'll do that. So I did. It's in my hands. And I cheated. You'll see why. And it also happens to be the 10th anniversary of Scream Factory today. Good timing. So I figured I would do a Halloween stack challenge made completely out of Scream Factory films. 10 of them, because there's 9 letters in Halloween, but for some reason I don't have a W. But you'll see how I cheated when we get there. Here we go. So, for the H, I got the collector's edition of The House on Haunted Hill. This movie I remember renting off DirecTV back when that was new. And it's pretty creepy. It's a cool remake. This was like back in the late 90s when they were suddenly remaking all these old like Vincent Price horror movies back in the day. And you have Jeffrey Rush in here basically playing Vincent Price, essentially, who's a theme park owner who makes all these crazy, scary, death-defying rides. And he has these group of people who will win $1 million, I believe, if they could spend a night in this giant mansion thing overnight. And it's a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, it's produced by Bob Zemeckis, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's got a good cast. I'm going to forget who they all are now that I said that. Famke Janssen, Taye Diggs, Ollie Larder, Bridget Wilson, Peter Gallagher, and Chris Kattan, not to mention Jeffrey Rush, who I already mentioned. So there is my H for Halloween. For A, it's funny because I have like multiple choices for the other letters. But alligator. I picked this because it's not necessarily my favorite A, but it's the best of their 4Ks that I've watched so far, and it was a surprisingly damned good movie to boot. Robert Forster's in this one. He's always cool. Haven't had a chance to watch the special features yet, but there's apparently a very in-depth interview with Bryan Cranston, who worked on this film. It was his first professional job, and he was good friends with Robert Forster throughout his career, and he was actually in like one of the last episodes of Breaking Bad as well. Not long before he sadly passed away. I have to respell it in my brain every time I grab a new one. Here's one that's, I guess, really hard to find now, and I was lucky when I ordered it a couple years ago, got it with the slip. Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. This is a cool, weird head trip magician movie. Also has Famke Janssen in it, oddly enough. And Scott, why can't I think of his name? Scott Bakula, the guy from Quantum Leap. And it has Kevin J. O'Connor, who I have always loved from The Mummy, played Benny in The Mummy. And it is written and directed by Clive Barker himself. So if you like Clive Barker horror, this one would be up your alley. But this one I'm pretty sure is pretty tough to find now, especially with the slipcover. That poster art is really ugly. But there is my first L. Here's one of the first Scream Factories I bought, getting into them, The Lawnmower Man, which is not a great movie. But there is 2 cuts of the movie on here. I only watched the theatrical cut when I first got it. There is also a director's cut that is like damn near 2.5 hours long. So I'm curious how much that adds to the actual film. It's an interesting movie. It's worth a watch, regardless of if you end up liking it or not. But it's got Pierce Brosnan and Jeff Fahey. He plays this fella here, who's kind of like a slow guy, a little mentally slow, I guess. I don't want to say anything offensive. But he uses this virtual reality thing, computer thing, and he ends up becoming smarter and becomes like a super genius. And then he turns into the Lawnmower Man thing, where he is a lawnmower man. That's where the name comes from. He mows their lawn. This is nothing like the short story. I believe it is a Stephen King short story, and it couldn't be any more not like the story. So there's a sequel to this that I hear is absolute hot garbage that I have not seen, but this one is at least worth a watch, even just for the weirdness. And hi, Oliver. Speaking of Oliver, Oliver starts with O, and my only O Scream Factory is Obsession, which I haven't opened yet. O's for open. Look at that coincidence. But this is one I'm interested in watching. I have the poster up on the wall, actually. It is a Brian De Palma film, so that alone makes it at least worth seeing. And it's got the great John Lithgow and Cliff Robertson in it. Robertson? Yeah, I didn't read that wrong. Uncle Ben from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. That's Cliff Robertson. Yeah, but it's like a weird tale where this guy's wife and kid go missing, and then he like finds them, but it's not really them, and then he thinks he's going crazy. It's like one of those weird type of movies. Sounds like a Brian De Palma movie to me, but I need to watch this one still. I don't know why I haven't gotten around to it. I've had it for way too long. But there's my O and V. I already ruined the cheat. I don't have a W. I could just grab another W off my shelf. I have Wishmaster. I have the Wraith. I have Warlock, and that's just in my Vestron video section. That's this big. But I don't have a W Scream Factory, surprisingly. But what is a W, if not two V's next to each other? So I grabbed Village of the Damned by John Carpenter. I almost could have done this thing all with John Carpenter movies, oddly enough. And Valentine, because I've actually watched these two. I saw this for the first time pretty recently, and it's, the post-Scream ripoff 2000s. It's okay. If you like these kind of movies, watch it. If you don't like these kind of movies, you can live without it. And John Carpenter's Village of the Damned, the remake, starring the late, great Superman himself, Christopher Reeve, and Kirstie Alley. I've watched this one a couple of times. It's not great. It's not one of the better John Carpenter movies, but I enjoy it well enough. So there's my W, as it were. And the two E's, I could have done both Escape movies, Escape from New York and Escape from LA, like I said. And my A, could have done Assault on Precinct 13. Pretty close to being able to do it all with John Carpenter movie. Like one off, pretty much. If it wasn't for the O, I think. And obviously the W I don't have. Anywho, I could have done John Carpenter's Vampires instead of Valentine, but I decided not to. But for my E's, instead of doing the Escape movies, I decided to do both Exorcist sequels. You have Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which is not good, but it's so batshit crazy, you need to see it just to believe it. I enjoyed this movie just because it's so freaking weird that you need to see it to believe it kind of a sequel. It's like, why this? Why is this a movie? I don't know. And then you have, of course, Exorcist 3, which is the actual sequel to The Exorcist, book-wise. The book is called Legion. So this is The Exorcist 3. I haven't opened this, but I've seen the movie. And it's fantastic. Exorcist 3 is extremely underrated. And you got George C. Scott, who is awesome. Brad Dourif, who's awesome. This movie, at least the director's cut, which is what I need to watch once I finally open this, I believe does not even have an exorcism in it. That's why the movie's called Legion. It should be Legion. But then the studio's like, there's no exorcism in this Legion movie. And the author was like, yeah, because there's not one. It's not called The Exorcist. It's called Legion. And they're like, put an exorcism in there. And then they forced him to put one in there, and it makes no sense. Whatever. But other than that shoehorning exorcism scene that's in there, this is actually a great movie. It's like a crime thriller. George C. Scott plays, I can't remember the damn, Police Lieutenant Kinderman, which is a character from the original. It is not played by the same actor. TJ Cobb plays him in the original. I'm surprised I remember that so suddenly. But yeah, George C. Scott's awesome. He's a police officer. Solving these murders, essentially, that are happening. And then he has to interview Brad Dourif, who is a crazy person of some sort. Yeah, while trying to figure out what's going on. So it's kind of like Silence of the Lambs and like Seven. It's more like that. So if you like Silence of the Lambs and Seven with an exorcism scene shoved into the end of it for no reason, with great performances and what is arguably the greatest jump scare of all time, go watch Exorcist 3 and probably the director's cut, which I haven't seen, but you might as well. These are still available, I think, with the exception of Lord of Illusion. And for my N, I would do Night at the Creeps, but Bob did already. I love Night at the Creeps. So I did the next best thing. The most 1984 movie ever made, Ninja 3, The Domination. I always want to say The Dominion for some reason, which I also have the poster of up there. This movie is so weird. Go back and watch my video I made about it when Ken was doing his 1984 month. I made a most 1984 movie of all time, talking about this movie briefly. It is the third in the Ninja series, obviously, but it's got the girl from Breakin' in it, and it's a Golden Globus Canon picture, so you know it's gold, just right off the bat. And it's like Flashdance meets The Exorcist meets a ninja movie. So if you like those things and only have 90 minutes to spare, watch them all at once with Ninja 3, The Domination. So there is my double cheated Halloween stack of all Scream Factory movies. But I can't say anything about Scream Factory without talking about my first Scream Factory purchase back in 2014. Still one of the best things I've ever owned. The Halloween. Hey, look how that worked out. 15 disc, 10 film collection. These movies probably won't ever be in a collection together again, at least anytime soon. It doesn't seem like the 4Ks are going to be happening, at least in a box set together. And the Rob Zombie movies probably aren't going to get released by Scream Factory, it seems like. So this is the only thing you'll ever get all these movies in together in such a nice package. And yeah, so I thought I'd throw that in there since I try to do all Scream Factory movies that spell out Halloween. And just in case I spelt it wrong, minus the V thing. There you go. Yeah, that was fun. I wish I had a W. I was so pissed when I didn't have one. And I'm like, I'm doing it anyways. Well, thank you, young 4K King. And then I also watched Bob's, like I said, Bob's Blu-rays video. And I was like, oh, that looks fun. I'm going to do that. And happy 10th birthday to Scream Factory, screaming and scheming for the whole decade. Once again, please like, share, and subscribe. I am Derek, the Convicted Cinephile. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.
Talk, shop, pop, movies.